This is Nick Nielsen, Mad Scientist of Muscle, and what I've got for you today here is a review of the Ritkeep RAB3000 weight bench. Now, as you can see, it is not assembled. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unbox and I'm going to assemble it, and I'm going to multiply the speed on this video massively so that you don't have to basically watch me put this thing together for an hour. This will be put together in like a minute or two from the video here. But what I want to do is kind of give you an idea of how this goes together, and then I'm going to basically put it to work, use it, test it, and come back to you with a full review after you see the really super fast unboxing and assembly. So here we go. Alright, so that is the assembly of the bench. Now, this was actually the easiest assembly that I've ever had for a bench. It was literally just put the two bolts on the feet here, put the two pads on the frame, and all done. So literally it was like 15-20 minutes at the most. Very simple, didn't really hardly even need the instructions. What I definitely do recommend though is getting yourself a good socket wrench set, because the little wrenches that come with this assembly thing, they're functional, but just kind of barely functional. They kind of sit loosely on here, and it actually is a little more difficult to use those little included wrenches. So if you've got a pair of pliers, ideally a socket wrench set is going to be your best bet. But overall, very quick, very easy, and first impression, this bench looks really nice and solid, nice and sturdy. A little bit shifty once you start getting into the incline aspects of it, but that's kind of what I've found with just about every bench that I've tested, so not a big deal there. Gonna give this a good run through here, and I'll be back to you with a full review here right after this. Alright, so now that the bench is fully assembled, I've had the chance to mess around with it, do some training on it, and I'm going to give you the full rundown on it here now. So this is what the bench looks like. It is a very simple adjustable incline to flat to slight decline bench. Now, all you need to do to adjust it, and this goes all the way up to full 90 degrees, and literally it's just that easy. All you need to do, move this support arm, and it catches on any one of these notches on the way down. It's going to give you options from flat all the way up to slow, low incline to moderate incline to full 90 degrees. And if you want to go a slight decline, you can. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in the video, give you a better rundown on it. Now, the seat does the same thing. Different setting, different angles. Now, this thing is easy to move around. It is not super heavy. It's got wheels right here on the end. Those don't touch the ground until you grab the handle here, and you can move it around super fast, super easy. Makes it a great idea for a home gym. That way you're not having to, I mean, not that you couldn't, but it is, this thing probably weighs maybe 25, 30 pounds at the most. I'll probably look that up later and dub that in later in post-production. If I had a production team, I would do that. Now, this bench is well put together. This is nice and solid. The bolts here are solid. The metal here, it's not the thickest metal that I've seen on a bench, but it's going to be more than sufficient for any home gym stuff you're going to be wanting to do with this. I've put some pretty substantial weight on here. What I'm actually going to show you here is some of the training that I've done with this, kind of run down some of the uses that I found for it, and I'll come back to you after and show you exactly how strong this bench is. All right, so when setting up this bench for incline presses, I like to keep it to about a 30-degree angle. I don't like to go too high on that, because for me particularly, my front delts do take over very quickly and very easily. So one of the nice things about this bench, very quick and easy to change the incline. So literally all you have to do is, there's your flat setting. Boom, there you're all set for incline presses. The seat is just as quick when you're doing the settings. Low incline. This kind of, you can go even higher. I don't like to go too high on this because it does interfere with picking over, leaning over to pick up the dumbbells and getting them into position. So setting it to right about here is pretty much ideal. All right, so now I've got the bench set up for flat dumbbell bench press. Now obviously you can use this for barbell press as well if you're doing it inside the power rack or potentially a Smith machine. Now what you're going to find here is that when you lie back, your butt's going to sit right into this dip right here, which is totally fine because that kind of gives your body that stabilized arch position, which actually helps with bench press strength. Now, one thing that I've noticed with this bench, and I'm not sure if they did this for style reasons or for potentially other reasons, but this tapers from a wider position right here to kind of a narrower position here. I'll tilt the bench so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's a little bit wider right here, which I think actually to me should be the opposite. I think because your butt is right here, you could potentially have this a little bit narrower and this a little bit wider for better upper back support when you're doing a dumbbell or barbell bench press. I did notice when I was getting a little heavier that I was starting to get a little bit unstable on the bench. It's not going to be an issue if you're lifting lighter weight. If you're going for much heavier weight, it could potentially cause you to run into some stability issues as you're doing the exercise. Particularly I found when I was lying back and getting into position, that's kind of an unstable position just in general. So you roll back, you get into position. If you don't have something to really stabilize and press from, you might be a little unstable getting back to the top. If you've got spotters, not a big deal. If you're training at home, might be a bit more of a consideration with this bench. Overall, very strong and sturdy, but because it's a little bit narrower at the top, that could potentially be an issue. Right, now, in terms of doing bench press with this particular bench, one thing I do like about this is it's actually set a little bit lower. I do have another bench that I have that is probably about 2 to 3 inches higher, which means when I'm lying back, I actually have to set my feet on not the actual floor, but on the foot of the bench. With this, because the bench is a little bit lower, that's not an issue. So what happens is I lie back here on my other bench, I actually have to set my feet up on the feet of the bench so that I can get a decent leg drive and a decent locking into the movement. With this bench, because it's lower, I can get that acute knee angle here and actually get that lock in and get that leg drive that stabilizes you for the bench press much more easily and much more effectively. So for that, this is a fantastic height setup for this particular exercise. All right, so one of the interesting things about this particular flat bench is it goes slightly decline as well. There's actually a setting for it. It's a very slight decline, but it is there. If you're going to use this as a decline bench, because there are no knee pads or ankle pads here to hook yourself onto, you want to make sure you're staying light so that there's no inclination to slide down the bench. I'm doing some decline presses here for higher reps with a pair of 50s, so it does give you a great option for that. So it's definitely something unique to this particular bench. Don't lie back too quickly, but it gives you a nice decline angle here. Now, for using this bench for one-arm dumbbell rows, there are 2 ways you can set this up. You can set your knee on here and have this space essentially clear for doing the dumbbell row. If you're going to use the other bend, the higher end, you're going to have to watch out for that foot. And I'll show you that one after I do the set with this one so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's very easy to get around. You just kind of move yourself up on the bench a little bit and problem solves. But here's what it looks like. So foot here, and you want to have the dumbbell inside your base of support. That's going to give you the best basically strength capabilities when you're doing the exercise. And then it's just a matter of rowing. Now, if you have one dumbbell and you just want to switch back and forth very quickly, here's what I'm talking about. Shift this over, but not all the way to the end. So, if you were doing knee on the end, your dumbbell would hit this foot plate right here. What you want to do here is then simply slide up so that your knee is further up on the bench, and it completely eliminates that as an issue. Then you're just doing the same exercise. There you have it. Very effective for an exercise like the one-arm dumbbell row. This is rock solid here. I'm going to show you a little bit later in the video here. They say this bench is rated to 1,300 pounds. I'm going to put that on here just to make sure. Alright, so next exercise up is an incline chest supported row. Now, going back to what I had said on the flat bench part, where it's a little wider here and narrower here, this is actually going to be a benefit for you on doing an exercise like this. because it's narrower, you're not going to have as much of your chest resting on the bench, which means you're going to have a little bit more freer range of movement in the shoulders. So when you're doing the exercise, if the bench was wider, you'd be having to go around the bench. Here, because it's narrower, you can actually get a much smoother, closer in range of motion. It's going to be a benefit for this exercise. So here's what that looks like. Now on here, I like to kind of hook the chin over the bar or the end of the bench. You also want to make sure that you're low enough on the bench that the dumbbells aren't going to hit these feet here. Now, because you're able to bring the dumbbells in more, there's a bit more chance of them clanging against here, which you probably heard as I was doing the exercise. It doesn't interfere with the exercise itself very much at all, but because of the particulars of the setup, if you're going to use heavier dumbbells, you will need to come down a little bit more. This just kind of expands a little bit lower anyways, so not a big deal. You could potentially even obviously just raise the angle of the bench. It's going to mean that's not going to reach down. The only problem being trying to grab the dumbbells. So the next exercise we're going to look at here is a barbell bench / box squat. Now, normally when you're doing box squats, you're using a box. I personally don't have the box, so I actually like to use a flat bench for this. The other bench that I have, as I mentioned, is a little bit higher, so that kind of shortens the range of motion. With this bench, because it's a little bit lower, I get a greater range of motion. So this is a great alternative for kind of increasing the range of motion on the box squat. Now, one of the other nice things about this particular bench over some of the other benches I've tested is kind of the tripod design. So you got the 2 feet here and the 1 foot there. When I'm using my regular bench, I actually have 4 foot. So when I'm using these for bench squats, I actually have to step over that end foot. With this, because it's a single foot down at the end here, I don't have to worry about that. There's nothing to step over. I can basically just get the bar on my back, take 2 steps back, and start the exercise. So what you want to do is make sure that you're not sitting, obviously, in the crevice of the bench. You want to actually sit on the bench surface. But overall, there's no qualms about the sturdiness of this bench. It's absolutely going to hold up, even if you're using a really heavy weight for these bench / box squats. So here's what it looks like here. get in position just as you normally would. As you can see, there's nothing in the way of my feet here. 2 steps back, and I'm good to go. Makes for a very effective exercise for doing bench/box squats. All right, so now we're moving on to incline dumbbell curls. And again, for this one, just kind of like the incline dumbbell bench press, I like to keep kind of a shallow angle. The further back you're leaning, the more of a stretch you're going to get on the biceps. So you can literally set it to angle and any angle you want, but a little bit shallower angle I find is a little bit better. And you can hear my dog running around upstairs. But the seat here, you do want to kind of set up to a decent angle because that's going to prevent you from sliding down too much. Now, one of the benefits of this bench shape here being a little wider here and a little narrower here, that's going to come in handy for incline dumbbell curls. It's going to not stop the shoulders as much, so you can get your shoulders back, get a greater stretch on the biceps at the bottom. Alright, so now we're going to do a strength test on this bench by basically very simply loading plates on here to see how many this thing's going to hold. So I've got 45s that I'm stacking up on here. As you can see, little by little here, we're piling on some weight, right about 500-600 pounds now here. Then we're kind of getting close to the maximum, and I'm going to slow it down here right before this thing here. And there's the load limit. That's about 850 pounds. When this starts to go, that's when it goes. Alright, so as you can see, I am nothing if not thorough in my testing of these benches. When I saw the claim of rated to 1,300 pounds, I knew I had to test that. Now, even though this held 800 pounds, and when I put that 850 on there, it, lost it. Don't let that fool you into thinking this is a shoddy bench or not a strong bench. Because if you think about it, literally this held 800 pounds. So that's a lot of weight. You're never going to get to that in a home gym situation. If you're lifting that much weight, you're going to be in a commercial gym with hardcore heavy-duty equipment. So this should actually give you confidence that this is a very strong bench and it's going to hold up to anything you want to do in a home gym situation. I know for me, I have no problem testing my weight on this. This thing is still rock solid, even though it didn't hold 850 pounds. I'm never going to do that on a regular bench. So even though it has a few slight design things that I think could be improved, it does go a little bit decline, which if you're doing heavier weight, you will tend to slide a bit. That's, having a decline just in general is a good thing. So just stick with lighter weights and you're going to be just fine on that. If you want to go full decline, you can. I wouldn't recommend it. Overall, the design of the bench I think is good. The solidity of the bench is good. The padding has a little bit of give to it, but it's not going to sink in too much. I like this bench. I think it's a good bench, and if you're using it in a home gym situation, it's going to cover everything you need for years to come. Every flat bench incline exercise, you want to do a little bit of decline stuff, not everything on decline, but that's kind of just a bonus I consider. So overall, this Ritkeep adjustable bench, definitely a good piece of equipment for your home gym.